So what does Phil's journey in Groundhog Day have in common with Aristotle's Nicomachean ethics? So this movie is going to be about Phil, Bill Murray's character, in Groundhog Day, one of my favorite movies, as well as a cult classic and shared favorite with many thousands, millions of people across the world. However, if you've not seen the movie, I highly recommend going to see the movie rather than to continue to watch. You might understand what I'm talking about, but I think it would help anybody to just watch the movie again or clarify. No harm in that. Anyway, proceeding with the video explanation, the point that I want to get across is that for Aristotle there are three lives, right? So there's a life of gratification, a life of honor, and a life of study. So these all correspond to different parts of when Phil is living and when Phil is experiencing time throughout his time loop. So in the life of gratification, there's several examples of what Phil does throughout the video that clarify as like pleasure seeking or gratification. This sort of goes without saying, but the main notable examples are when he's seducing the one woman. He tells her that he's in her 12th grade class and sort of manipulates her and lies to her. So not only is that unethical, but that's pleasure seeking for its own sake. He also is in the cafe scene and he eats a whole bunch of food and is smoking and drinking coffee, not out of a cup but right out of the pitcher. So, and there's another one where he's in the car and he's fleeing the police and he's sort of just running over things. I don't know if that's exactly pleasure seeking, but thrill seeking. I think these all sort of fit within the life of gratification. So for Aristotle, pleasure is sort of one of the lower motives for human beings, right? Human beings can achieve pleasure, but it's not something that is particularly good or something that should be sought for its own sake. For Aristotle, pleasure is sort of a viable possibility for animals, like something to pursue if you're just a pig or a horse or a donkey or whatever, but not for humans, because Aristotle essentially says that humans are rational animals and that humans, they seek to use their reason and their rational capacity, usually with other humans, but generally not just to achieve like basic pleasure. Bodily pleasure is not at all what Aristotle sees as being something worth pursuing for any amount of time. And this corresponds to when Phil is pleasure seeking, when he lives days of gratification. Honestly, he doesn't seem very enthusiastic about it. He sort of makes quips and things about that, especially in the diner. He's sort of laughing along and that sort of thing. And but these pleasures seem pretty empty for Phil. In particular, when he's smoking at the diner, he looks pretty damn miserable. He actually looks miserable for most of the time. The only time he doesn't look miserable during his gratification scenes that at least I can remember is when he's in the car, he's at least laughing. But I don't know if he's laughing at the situation or he's laughing out of desperate anxiety or what. He doesn't look truly happy. He just looks sort of ready to die, I guess you might say. So this emptiness that Phil feels as a result of the pleasures not getting him to where he wants sort of leads him to the next step, the next qualification. And I believe this is the next part, the second life, which is the life of honor or politics for Aristotle. Now, honor and politics for Aristotle is really important. Aristotle has a whole treatise about politics. He also writes an entire sort of constitution, legislative history of Athens. So he's really interested in this concept in particular, and he writes a decent bit about it in the Nicomachean Ethics. Now, he mentions that honor is a viable possibility for humans because it sufficiently meets the requirement of humans employing reason, right? So the catch is for Aristotle is that it doesn't work for humans because it depends on other people. So when you're going around and you're being a politician or you're running a campaign or whatever, whether you do a good job or not, some people can sort of make up ideas or have opinions on their own, which sort of integrates itself into your reputation, so they can craft lies about you or hate you or that sort of thing, and it will reflect how well you. It will to others reflect how well you did. But in reality, you could have done a great job, and that's not something you can control. And because of that, it's not dependent on your own effort. Aristotle sort of just says this is not a real possibility. It's not a strong possibility in bringing humans happiness. So, especially if what you're looking for in honor is like a sufficiently large reputation, positive reputation from other people, it's just going to be hard because people are always going to try and throw you under the bus or that sort of thing, cover their own ass, and so it's going to be difficult to maintain a high degree of happiness. And it's also worth mentioning, at least now, I might mention another point in the video, is that Aristotle writes several different words, but the one that I want to focus on in the video is in Greek. It's called Eudaimonia. Now, in the reading, it's called happiness. So, in the Nicomachean ethics, usually happiness is just eudaimonia. But, that being said, its real meaning is more akin to something like human flourishing or thriving. And so, what Aristotle is interested in is eudaimonia being the end goal for humans. And so, it's something that is particularly interesting to me because it's a criterion that centers on how people find meaning, right? So happiness is important, but what Aristotle is talking about is it's sort of happiness that is suitable really only for humans. So like with the pleasure example, going back to that briefly, a donkey might be fine eating out of a trough all day or something like that, but Phil is just gonna like hate himself more for that. He's just gonna feel like lazy and repulsive, and he's gonna hate himself, and other people aren't gonna like him, right? So, and honor, even if he wasn't doing that, the way he does his job, the way he acts around other people, it's subject to other people's opinions, right? So, it's not completely, as Aristotle would put it, it's not self-sufficient. It's not something that Phil has control over exactly. So, and this sort of leads us to the third part of Aristotle's theories here on lives, and this is the life of study. And the life of study for Aristotle, let me just explain this real quick, is really, it's about employing reason, as I've already stated in the honor example, so it's suitable for human beings, but it also depends almost entirely on one's own dedication. So it's grounded in how far someone is willing to study or improve themselves. And in Phil's case, it's going to be about improving. It is about literally studying, because in one scene, he's seen in a diner and he's reading, and the exact amount of time is sort of unclear, right? But I think the goal to understand is that Phil is learning different things out of books, because what he's learned so far has not helped him progress in any real meaningful way in his lives up until that point. So he's reading. I don't remember if it says what book he's reading. I don't think it does. But later in one of the speeches, he mentions Chekhov. So I would imagine he reads some Chekhov at least, probably some other things. But what Aristotle is talking about, especially in regards to study, is not just taking notes or something like that. It's really about what he would have called like philosophy, the pursuit of wisdom. But not to get too in the weeds and too lost into minutia and small bits of information, every time that Phil is seeking out wisdom or knowledge in order so that he can like implement it, make someone's life better, this is an example of study. So this is part of one of the main aims of like Eudaimonia, is that like human flourishing essentially is like a series of actions for Aristotle. Is like one of the things that he mentions is like, if you're aiming at Eudaimonia and you're trying to keep up this state of human flourishing or thriving, you can't just achieve this by sort of just existing. You can't just like exist for 10 hours and you haven't done anything bad, so you're good. That doesn't work for Aristotle. So the studying is like, you don't need to carry around a pen and a paper, but you need to be taking notes and sort of in your mind, and you need to be highly observant. and sort of mulling things over in your mind and getting to a higher stance of knowledge and implementing that knowledge as well, which is what Phil begins to do. And this is, at this point in the video, I'd like to sort of segue from just talking about learning and study and theoretical type stuff, but to some of the in-movie examples, which I didn't mention last time, but that are, honestly, they're really interesting. And so on my last watch of Groundhog Day, I noticed this. So Phil sort of asks Rita what her perfect sort of man is like. So she says he would be too humble to know he's perfect, intelligent, supportive, funny, romantic, courageous. He has a good body, and he doesn't have to look in the mirror every 2 minutes. He's kind, sensitive, and gentle. He's not afraid to cry in front of me. He likes animals and children, and he'll change poopy diapers. Plays an instrument and loves his mother. So I don't think those are all in order, but those are the qualifications. So now I'm going to mention all this again, but by the end of the film, Bill Murray, or Phil, right, comes to embody all these characteristics, except there's a couple. So loving his mother, I don't think he actively demonstrates that, but I guess it could be inferred that he does, or he has at least compassion for all human life by saving, like, at least Buster's life, because he would have choked to death, and the kid who fell out of the tree, he definitely saved their lives, as well as helping many people. The diaper bit, I mean, maybe. Again, compassion. He doesn't actively demonstrate that. That's shown in the movie. Maybe he does, but it's not seen to me. The crying bit, again, compassion, maybe, but it's not shown in the film. And then the animals bit, I don't remember him interacting with many animals. But again, I guess compassion, she's just got a lot of it, I suppose. I'm going to sort of just list all these examples now. So courage and supportive, when he saves Buster's life, the guy who's choking, I think he's the mayor. Also when he helps with the older women, he helps get out of the road. They call him the Motor Jack Club guy or something like that. Also, he demonstrates his kindness when he's helping the younger couple, and he gets them tickets for WrestleMania. Also, I would say that when he helps the guy buy life insurance, that's sort of kind as well. So, playing an instrument, he has a big piano scene at the end. Intelligence. So his speech with the Chekhov thing shows that he's cultured and he's well read. He has a lot of literary knowledge, at least, or some literary knowledge about Chekhov. Him helping fix someone's back, that's not shown on screen, which makes me think, again, that there is some credence to the things that were not demonstrated in the film, that they maybe were demonstrated to Rita, or someone told her about them, that weren't shown on screen. He also does the ice sculpture. That's intelligence. I'd say that's, knowledge implemented. That counts as intelligence to me. That he likes children. He saves the kid in the tree's life. I don't know if Rita knows about that, but he definitely did. Sensitive. Lighting the cigarette in the restaurant, or offering to help with that and doing that. Now, dealing with Ned and helping him out with the life insurance is important. I think that's sort of sensitive, as well as gentle. Those meet those criterion as well. Funny. He is always making jokes throughout the movie, but I don't think he really exemplifies this anymore. That's one of the few dimensions in which he doesn't change as much, except his humor isn't as biting. It's more like it's more complimentary, less deprecating of others, maybe a little more self-deprecating. But he does make Rita laugh several times. Romantic is sort of what he says after the ice sculpture. He mentions several things. He mentions that he's happy now because of you. He's talking to Rita. And then he mentions that he knows her face by memory, so that he loves her that much that he just knows her face that well. So the good body part, it's sort of just up to Rita, I guess. It's like, I guess the other thing is that the women in town and Punxsutawney all bid, like, they're up to $60 before Rita pays the, like, $300 something. And then last he asked what he can do for Rita. And actually, this is another thing I wanted to speak about, is just sort of like Phil's attitude towards helping other people and like volunteering his talents, efforts, skills, and just being sort of attentive towards other people's needs is like a big 180 from the beginning of the film, where he doesn't want to go to Punxsutawney, he doesn't want to chip in for work, he doesn't want to deal with his coworkers, and he doesn't want to deal with anyone in Punxsutawney. He really doesn't want to do anything. He's pretty sour throughout the entire film, or throughout the first part of the film is what I meant. And but when he demonstrates that he's willing to help others and bring coffee and help other people and save their lives, and especially to do that without being thanked, is a massive 180. It demonstrates his real character growth. And then the last part is that this isn't one of the qualities. It's sort of an indirectly mentioned one. So she says, too humble to know he's perfect. Well, that's sort of like a sub-clause is the perfect part. Now, I think the perfect part is all the growth that Phil's implemented. You can see it. So he's become the perfect person, at least for Rita. And essentially at the end of the film, too, when he sort of says to Rita, like, let's live here. It's sort of like he's made peace with Punxsutawney, he's made peace with himself, he's made peace with a community that he's found out. And not only does he not, like, hate life anymore, he doesn't want to, like, kill himself. He's found someone that he wants to share his life with, and he's also found sort of a space where he can put his skills to good use and put his talents to good use, and rather than be upset about all the time he spent there, my take on it is that he might be a little bit nostalgic about it, and that he's really sort of happy about all the time that he spent in Punxsutawney. He's going to make the best out of it. So Phil's journey of self-improvement, or what Aristotle might term the life of study, is his hero's journey, and his perfection is what he has to earn, and what he learns, also what ends the time loop, right? He can't use cheap tricks and sort of faking love to sort of get Rita to where he wants. You can't just sort of cheat your way into a meaningful relationship. And part of the film is understanding that, and Phil understanding that. But I think, again, just to reiterate, the special connection to Aristotle is that Phil's able to embody all these different traits by actively living them. He's implementing them, so he had to learn how to, he had to learn where the kid is falling out of the tree, but he also had to learn how to not expect someone to come along and pat him on the back for it. So that's also cultivating a humbleness, humility, and notice too that his journey is not overnight. It's hard won. It could be 20 to 30 years. It could be longer than that. If you looked at the original script, it was something like 1,000 years. So it's a really long time, and it's just it's interesting because it's just it's not several days. Just like Aristotle says, it's like you've got to keep implementing this knowledge, not like it just stops. The life of study allows you to keep implementing knowledge, keep helping people, keep learning more and getting better, right? Because being human is not being perfect. It's implementing knowledge and doing the best you can. But Phil's positive progress only comes when he implements his knowledge, right? Specifically to help and benefit other people in his community. This actually can be seen as the case when people know who Phil Connors is by the end of the movie. Because in the first part, you can see like when he goes out and asks people questions and stuff, they just sort of stare at him like, oh, this is some random person on the street that's here for Groundhog Day. But like by the end of the movie, everyone comes up to him and says how nice he is and how they've helped him. And they start saying to Rita like what a catch he is and that sort of thing. And also at the end, I've already mentioned this, but like when all the women are bidding on him, he's like actually made himself attractive, or as Rita would want in one of her criterion is romantic, right? So he's become romantic in the way that he's so compassionate and loving towards other people. That attractiveness sort of emanates off him from all the good that he's done in that one day. Now it's that one day, but it's taken something like 25, 30 years of him living in this time loop for him to understand it.